I hope you enjoy this hero's journey into the realm of philosophy, psychology, and physics. If you want to help me create more content like this, please subscribe and consider sponsoring me here on YouTube. I also want to thank the Platonic Mystery School of the Divine Infinite Being for sponsoring this course, and you can check that school out at divineinfinitebeing.com. Stanislav Grof on LSD and NDEs. So here's a quote from Richard Tarnas, who's the author of The Passion of the Western Mind, which is the best single-volume history of Western philosophy that I've ever read. I've been reading it since 1993. I give it to people for Christmas gifts. It's a really great book that I'll be referring to frequently in this class. So according to Richard Tarnas, the most epistemologically significant development in the recent history of depth psychology, and indeed the most important advance in the field as a whole since Freud and Jung themselves, has been the work of Stanislav Grof. So Stanislav Grof started experimenting with LSD, and as we'll see, people under the influence of that powerful psychedelic drug have many of the same experiences as people who have near-death experiences. After Grof's first LSD trip in 1957, he conducted clinical analyses of thousands of patients under the influence of psychedelic drugs, mainly LSD-25, first in Czechoslovakia and the Psychiatric Research Institute in Prague, and then in the United States at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center in Baltimore, where I participated in the last surviving American psychedelic research program. So that's a quote from his book, Psychology of the Future. He got his medical degree in psychiatry, and as soon as he got his degree, he volunteered for an experiment where they shined a stroboscopic light on his optic nerve to see if it would entrain the brain waves. At any rate, let me continue to read here. Holotropic, moving in the direction of wholeness. That's a quote from that same book, Psychology of the Future. It's a word he coined. Citing physicist David Bohm, Grof reports about his own and other people's direct experiences of the holographic nature of the cosmos, in which each part contains all of the information of the whole. So, immortality and the unreality of death. Jung's near-death experiences so closely parallel Leonard Susskind's holographic string theory that I think it should give people confidence that you really do go out to the horizon of the cosmos when you die, that the past, the present, and the future really are conserved there, and in the centralmost point of the universe, and that each of us is a gravitational singularity encompassed by this collective unconscious cosmic horizon, wherein all of the eternal archetypal forms of knowledge are conserved eternally. That faith helps us overcome the fear of death. The confidence in immortality enables us then to perform our heroics for the supreme soul, and that is the hero's journey. The subtitle of this class is A Hero's Journey Through Philosophy, Psychology, and Physics. So here we are now dealing with, in Richard Tarnas' opinion, one of the triumvirate of 20th century psychologists, and Stanislav Grof is still alive. I studied with him and Richard Tarnas at the California Institute of Integral Studies. I took a class with Grof. It was interesting, and so was the one with Tarnas. But the point is, we're accumulating all of the evidence to give ourselves confidence that we are eternal souls and that the cosmos itself is a stage for cosmic heroics to perform for the omnipotent observer, the God archetype. Black holes and NDEs. This is your universe on acid. Some versions of the Black Hole War, as you can see in the picture here, have that book review from the New York Times at the top. So, as I said in the previous slide, LSD and NDEs are very similar, and both of them are similar to the experiences associated with a black hole. So in the cosmic landscape, Susskind admits to experimenting with LSD while at the University of California in Berkeley in the 1960s. Here's a quote from Michio Kaku. "A trip to a black hole would be fantastic, almost psychedelic. It's like having a near-death experience." So you couldn't ask for a better quote to encapsulate my claim that LSD trips, near-death experiences, and black hole physics are all very similar. Back to the Big Bang. In 1957, after receiving his MD in psychiatry in Prague, Grof volunteered for a clinical psychiatric experiment designed to determine whether beaming a strobe light at the optic nerves of someone under the influence of LSD could entrain the brain waves to the same frequency as the light. So here's Grof's recollection of that first acid trip with a stroboscopic light shining in his optic nerve. He said, "My consciousness was catapulted out of my body, and I lost connection with the research assistant, with the clinic, with Prague, with the planet, and I had this amazing experience of my consciousness just embracing everything. I actually became the physical universe somehow. I had the feeling I had been back to the Big Bang. There were experiences that I didn't have names for, but later when I read about the black holes, white holes, it was something in that category. Pulsars. Amazing cosmic experience. So I came down very impressed, and it just generated this lifetime interest in this non-ordinary states. This became my vocation, my profession, my passion. A hero's journey through philosophy, psychology, and physics." So here we see Stanislav Grof, one of the heroes in the quest to learn about the self, was passionately inspired by this LSD trip, which gave him the same experience that people who have near-death experiences have. That inspired him and guided the course of the rest of his life, and he has become a hero in the field of psychology, up there with the names of Freud and Carl Jung. The similarities between black hole physics and these out-of-body experiences during near-death experiences and psychedelic trips is just more evidence that each of us is a gravitational singularity, and that our collective unconscious is the horizon of the cosmos, where all of the archetypes are superimposed on each other. It's also important that Grof reiterates the holographic nature of his psychedelic experiences and near-death experiences, which he also studies. It just reiterates this comparison of Leonard Susskind's holographic string theory and Carl Jung's psychology. Stanislav Grof focuses more on the physicist David Bohm, who was the first one to come up with a holographic interpretation of quantum mechanics in the 1980s. Leonard Susskind, about a decade later, came up with a string theory version, which puts the holographic film out specifically at the horizon of the cosmos. But notice in this quote where Grof talks about losing connection first with the research assistant, then with the clinic, then with the city of Prague, then with the planet. So you see he's rising above his body, then he's looking down at the clinic, and he's looking down at the planet, and until he's embracing everything, and he feels like he's been back to Big Bang, he says. So he's in Czechoslovakia, he has an accent. But as we'll see in the forthcoming slides, the idea is, and I've mentioned this before, that when we have an out-of-body experience, our consciousness is interwoven with space-time itself. I mentioned it before, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher responding to David Hume in the 1700s, said that space and time are not empirically observable. You can't see them, smell them, touch them, hear them, or taste them. And yet, they're not just fictions of the mind, like David Hume assumed. Kant says they are a priori, meaning before experience. You're born with them, inborn lenses of cognition. They are the mind. And the nature of the mind, if the mind is space-time, is to expand because of the quantum vacuum, as we've been accumulating this evidence all along. And so notice, he leaves the association of the research assistant, then the entire clinic, then the city he's rising up and up, the planet's now below him now. He's out at the horizon of the cosmos, and that is back to Big Bang. The farther you go out in space is the farther you're going back in time. And the echo of the Big Bang is coming from the horizon of the cosmos. Furthermore, as we'll be studying, according to special relativity and general relativity, you would see an infinitely brilliant point of light at the end of a dark tunnel if you could travel at the speed of light, or if you could endure the equivalent gravitational tidal flow inside a black hole while you were looking out. The cosmic horizon is the realm that contains the Big Bang, and the singularity of the Big Bang exists at each point of the horizon of the cosmos. So everything Stanislav Grof says here is consistent with the claim that psyche equals singularity and therefore also the horizon of the cosmos. Looking down from the ceiling, even the blind can see. In the ultimate journey, consciousness and the mystery of death, Grof describes out-of-body experiences had by blind people during NDEs that have been confirmed by others, such as the electrical fixtures on the ceiling of the operating room or the outside of the hospital observed from a bird's eye view. So people who were born blind and had never seen anything in their lives had near-death experiences after which they recalled looking down at their bodies from the ceiling. and they recalled the electrical fixtures on the ceiling. They recalled rising above the hospital and looking at the roof of the hospital. If I recall correctly, one of them recalled that there was a single boot left on the roof, maybe by a roofer or something like that. But at any rate, these recollections were confirmed by other people, presumably not doctors and nurses, who were there at the time, which is just more evidence that consciousness does not come from your body. Consciousness leaves your body when you die, and then these people who had never seen anything in their lives are reporting seeing for the first time. Jung recalls a patient who had an NDE after a cesarean childbirth. So here's the quote from Carl Jung. The remarkable thing was that it was not an immediate perception of the situation through indirect or unconscious observation, but she saw the whole situation from above, as though her eyes were in the ceiling, as she put it. So according to Leonard Susskind's holographic principle, all of the information in any three-dimensional volume of space is recorded at the two-dimensional surface area. So his example was Grant's tomb. The information describing Grant's tomb is recorded on the walls of the interior of that building. But if you were to go out to see that information on the walls and the floor and the ceiling of Grant's tomb, it would recede out to the next concentric boundary, which would be the atmosphere of Earth. But the main point to reiterate is that during near-death experiences, people frequently recall looking down at their body from the ceiling as they rise above higher and higher. And that is consistent with holographic string theory, and it's also consistent with the expansion rate of space-time according to quantum mechanics and general relativity. Light at the end of the tunnel. Life after life. Grof refers to the pioneering study in 1975, Life After Life, by Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience. Here's a quote from Grof's The Ultimate Journey. Many of the accounts included descriptions of passage through a dark enclosed space referred to as a funnel, cave, tunnel, followed by encounters with divine light. Out-of-body phenomena were some of the most common characteristics of near-death experiences. Many dying individuals mentioned in Moody's study reported encounters with other beings such as dead relatives or friends, guardian spirits, or spirit guides. Visions of the being of light were especially common. We will return to the similarity between the NDE light at the end of the tunnel and the tunnel vision associated with special and general relativity later. All right, so I will be quoting from some physicists who describe the tunnel vision associated with special and general relativity in a moment. But let me just reiterate here, out-of-body experiences. When you die, your consciousness leaves your body. And then typically people recall looking down at their body from the ceiling. That reminds me of a friend of mine who I talked to who was in a coma for several months, and he said that he was looking at his body not only from the ceiling, but panoramically from the walls and the ceiling. He was seeing himself from every angle, but he did say it was specifically out at the walls and the ceiling. So the point to reiterate is that out-of-body experience during comas and near-death experiences and psychedelic trips is consistent, the holographic principle of holographic string theory. Point of no return, the horizon of the cosmos. So continuing in The Ultimate Journey by Stanislav Grof, many accounts of NDEs refer to what appears to be a point of no return. This threshold may take a concrete form, a fence, body of water, cliff, or some other type of barrier, or involve simply a strong sense of an invisible but nevertheless compelling obstruction. Reaching this limit is associated with a convincing feeling that continuing beyond this point would mean physical death and would make returning to one's body impossible. So the point of no return. Space-time is expanding at an accelerating rate. The accelerating rate was discovered in 1998 by Saul Perlmutter. So that means that out at the horizon of the cosmos, space-time is expanding away from Earth from our geocentric perspective at the speed of light. Nothing can travel faster than light, except for space-time itself. So if you go beyond the horizon of the cosmos, you cannot get back in. That's the point of no return. And that is what I believe people are experiencing when they experience the point of no return during an near-death experience, because it also has the quality of enlightening these people about the past, the present, and the future of the entire universe with which they seem to be merged. So here's a quote from Leonard Susskind, again, who does not believe in near-death experiences and is an atheist. Nevertheless, his atheistic presentation of holographic string theory perfectly fits psychological descriptions of near-death experiences and psychedelic experiences. So continuing here, each of us is surrounded by a cosmic horizon, a sphere where things are receding with the speed of light. and no signal can reach us from beyond that horizon. Far out, at about 15 billion light years, our cosmic horizon is swallowing galaxies, stars, and probably even life. It is as if we all live in our own private inside-out black hole. So the inside-out black hole, expanding from a gravitational singularity instead of contracting into one. The point of no return, I am arguing, is the horizon of the cosmos. And in fact, Carl Jung himself said he was out at the horizon of the cosmos, where the past, the present, and the future were interwoven, and that each of us lives here in the three-dimensional world as if in a little cube of illusion tethered to the horizon of the cosmos by a thread. That's a perfect match for Susskind's holographic string theory. Moreover, that point of no return, as we're going to be examining, if you were to travel at near light speed through space-time or endure a similar gravitational tidal flow by going inside a black hole and looking out through the event horizon, you would see the entire universe condensed in a single point of light at the end of a dark tunnel. LSD and NDEs, out-of-body experience. So continuing in Grof's The Ultimate Journey. The similarity between these two categories of experiences hardly supports a simple chemical explanation for NDEs. If consciousness were nothing else but a product of neurophysiological processes in the brain, it could not possibly detach itself from the body and from the brain, become autonomous, and be able to perceive the environment without mediation of the senses. How can blind people see, and furthermore look down at the hospital where they're being operated on, if their eyes don't work? So the similarity between psychedelic experiences and LSDs doesn't point to an aberration in the brain chemicals, because the brain does not function during a near-death experience, as we're going to see in the famous case of Pamela Reynolds. But just keeping in mind, these out-of-body experiences, people still have sense perception, but it's not mediated through their physical body. So the implication is that consciousness is interwoven with space-time itself, and the expanding, rising above the body and the planet is especially reminiscent of the expansion of space-time described by general relativity in combination with quantum mechanics, which gives us the quantum vacuum, the violent energy within which causes space-time to expand. Basic perinatal matrices. So one of the things that Stanislav Grof discovered after giving thousands of patients LSD is that many of them would regress back through their childhood into the womb and then into previous lives. Consciousness in the womb. Grof's most unique discovery is that people under the influence of strong doses of LSD tended to have vivid and sometimes verifiable memories of gestation and the trauma of birth. He said that there are 4 phases in the womb that unconsciously color all future experiences. He called them the basic perinatal matrices, BPMs. From the oceanic feeling of the amniotic phase, to the gradually constricting phase prior to labor, to the skull-crushing expulsion through the birth canal, to the final metamorphosis from an aquatic animal in total darkness to an air-breathing animal in the noisy, blinding light. So there's BPM 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of those phases gets associated with all of the rest of the experiences we have in life, according to Grof's theory. Anything that you experience after you were born gets thrown into one of these 4 categories by your unconscious mind. So he looks at this basic perinatal matrices phase of consciousness as intermediate between the collective unconscious and the personal unconscious. So I just wanted to mention that in this series because it's his main discovery. The third basic perinatal matrix is the being pushed through the birth canal. That's the life and death horrifying experience that colors the rest of our lives. And so one of the speculations I had is that road rage and traffic jams equals BPM 3, the birth canal. When people are in a car, it's like being in the womb. And then when you get stuck in a traffic jam and you can't move, you're in this lane and it feels like you're trapped. A lot of times people have road rage. And I argue that that's because it's calling to mind this basic perinatal matrices number 3, the third BPM, that trauma of being expelled from the womb, having your skull crushed into a cone, forced through this narrow opening. That's the reason that being stuck in traffic jams seems to trigger a disproportionate amount of rage. And also, if it's true that we do recall on some unconscious level the trauma of birth, then the fear of death may also entail a fear of rebirth. It's terrifying to think that you might die, but it's also terrifying to think that you might be enclosed in a womb again and have to go through the trauma of being born again. I hope you are enjoying this hero's journey into the realm of philosophy, psychology, and physics. If you want to help me create more content like this, please subscribe and consider sponsoring me here on YouTube. You can also click the link to my website, psycheandsingularity.com, to sign up for a multiple-choice test with over 100 well-crafted questions related to this class, and links to the specific parts of each video where the answers can be found. If you take that test to the end, you will receive a certificate indicating that you have become a Psyche and Singularity scholar. In addition to access to that test, there is also the opportunity to answer essay questions that ask you to relate concepts covered in this class to your own hero's journey. I will personally respond to each of those essays, point out any other parts of this class that I think might bolster your plan. Finally, I want to point out that this course is sponsored by the Platonic Mystery School of the Divine Infinite Being, and you can check those guys out at divineinfinitebeing.com.